Good evening. We're going to see the continuation of the reproductive system, human reproductive system. Yesterday we have discussed about the male reproductive system. What is reproductive system, male reproductive system, then function of testes, then spermatogenesis, then structure of sperm. Now today we're going to, these are things which we have seen yesterday. Okay. What are the external, internal male reproductive systems, organs, everything else. When function of the testis, spermatogenesis, then how this formation of the structure of the sperm, and the okay, right. So today we're going to see about the female reproductive system. The female, even just like your male, the female reproductive system is also going to have an anatomy structure. That's going to be an external structure as well as the internal structure. The external structure of the female reproductive system is going to have two folds. Okay, it's going to have two layers of the skin, which enables the sperm to enter into the body and to protect the internal genital organ, such as labia majora and labia minora, then Bartholin glands and clitoris from the infections of the organisms. Okay, there in the female here we can able to see this labia majora and labia minora. So these are the two fold-like structures which is present in the female genital organ or the female reproductive system, which mainly used in safeguard from the infections, and it's going to get closed as we going to stretch the legs or thighs. We can able to see the layers. Until then it will be overlapping over this vagina, and it will be closing the vagina as well as the urethra. Okay, so what the main thing is, it is going to protect the vagina as well as urethra from the infectious, and then the female sex organ is oftenly prone to the urinogenital infection. So even though these protections has been given, and it also pay the way for the sperm to enter into the vagina. Then the internal structure is going to have, inside this we're going to have a reproductive organ such as vagina, uterus, ovary, and the fallopian tube. Right. So let me see the external female reproductive structures. The first one is going to be labia majora. Labia majora encloses and protects the other external reproductive organ. That's what I said. During the puberty, what happened during the puberty? This is going to be a labia majora. During the puberty, the hair growth occurs on the skin of labia majora, which is also contain the sweat glands as well as the oil secreting glands. Here we can able to find out the hair follicles, oil follicles as a sweat gland, which is present just like the skin. Next is going to be labia minora. So which is going to be this layer. This is going to be this layer which is going to be called as a labia minora. So labia minora can have a variety of size and shapes. Just inside the labia majora and surrounds the opening of the vagina and the urethra. So this is going to be urethra, urinary opening. This is going to be urethra and the vagina. In the female reproductive system, they're going to have separate tract for urine as well as for the sexual intercourse. So the tract which is used for the sexual intercourse, we call it as a vagina, and for the urination we call it as urethra, which is present separately. We can able to see in the diagram itself. Whereas in the male, both urethra and as well as the genital tract is going to be same. That's what we called it as a urinogenital tract. Right. So the skin is very delicate. This skin is very delicate and can be become easily irritated and swollen. That's the main thing, and it causes the sexual temptation as well as the orgasm produced by the when they're going to touch the this skin. It increases the orgasm of the woman. Right. Next is going to be Bartholin's gland. These glands are located next to the vaginal opening on each side of the secrete fluid to lubricate the vaginal mucus fluid. This is going to be this. You can find a small gland-like structure where we see bulbourethral gland, just like that. We can able to see here the Bartholin gland, which is mainly used to produce the mucus secretion in the vaginal layer. Why this mucus secretion? This mucus secretion helps for the penis to enter into the vagina easily without any friction, and it reduces friction as well as reduces the pain while injecting the penis inside this vagina. Right. Next is going to be clitoris. Okay, the clitoris is the two labia majora meets at the clitoris, a small sensitive protrusion that is comparable to the penis in the male. So you can able to find out this one, the small protrusion. Okay, this can be this can be compare with that glands in the penis. Just like that, they are going to have a small protrusion at the joining of your labia majora. So this is the joint of the two labia majora. We're going to have a small projection we called as a clitoris. This clitoris is covered by a fold of skin called as the prepuce, which is similar to the foreskin that ends in the penis, which covers the glands. Like the penis, and the clitoris is also very sensitive to the stimulation and can become erect at the time of the sexual intercourse. So we can't able to find out that much erection as male. So it's going to become some rigid and erect position during the time of sexual intercourse. The next we're going to see about the internal female reproductive system. This is going to be, so till here we have seen the external reproductive system. From here we're going to see about the internal reproductive system. The internal reproductive system going to consist of vagina, and this is going to be a cervix. Vagina, this part is going to be vagina, this is going to be a cervix, and this is going to be a uterus, and this is going to be a fallopian tube, which is going to end with an ovary. This is going to be an ovary, which is the female gonad, which going to secrete which is going to produce the ovum, and as well as some important female hormones. Okay, let me see the each and every parts in detail. First we're going to see about the vagina. The vagina is a canal that joins the cervix to the outside of the body. The whole thing, what we seen, the external female reproductive, the whole thing, they will call it as a vulva. Okay, so this one, the whole thing, this whole thing, they will call it as a vulva. Okay, that's what the vagina. The vagina is the canal that joins the cervix. It's going to join the cervix from the outer side of the body. We call it as a vulva, and it is also known as the birth canal. Why? Because the fetus, which is going to be come through your uterus through by opening the cervix, and it's going to comes to your vagina, and we call it as a birth canal. It is going to be an elastic muscular part of the female genital tract. The outer vaginal opening is partially covered by the membrane called as the hymen. Okay, the outer vaginal covering is going to we call it as a hymen. This layer will be most probably will be get tear during the time of sexual intercourse, and nowadays the females are going to participating in the athlete as well as when they stretch their leg to the maximum, gymnastics like that, when the female is going to be stretch their legs to the maximum, or there is a chances of tearing this layer called as hymen. Okay, so most probably the previous days hymen layer is used to find the virginity of the female, and nowadays due to a lot of works the female is going to take place, and a lot of the athletes and gymnastics they're going to do. So due to that the hymen layer might be get tear. So nowadays it is not acting as to find out the virginity of the female. Next we're going to see an important organ we call it as a uterus. So very important thing which going to bear the child or the fetus, and it's going to keep the fetus here for the period of 10 months, and after that it's going to be give birth to the fetus. Right. The uterus is a hollow pear-shaped organ that is the home for developing the fetus. This is going to be our home for the fetus, which we also call, the uterus is also called as womb, mother's womb. The uterus is divided into three parts. One is going to be a fundus above the entrance point of the fallopian tube. So coming from here, this is going to be called as a fundus layer. Then the body between the fundus and the isthmus, these two. In between the fundus and this isthmus, we call it as a body of the fetus. And next one is going to be a cervix, which we call which is below the isthmus. Okay, this is going to be your cervix region. So the three layers are going to be a fundus layer, the body of the uterus, and the cervix of the uterus. The canal through the cervix allows the sperm to enter and the menstrual blood to exit. So the main thing, the canal which is placed, the vaginal canal and the canal cervix canal, which is used as a birth canal, as well as it's also used for the used during the time of blood flow, during the time of menstrual cycle, to exit out from the uterus to the external female reproductive organ. The next thing we're going to see about the ovaries, the very important, the gonads of the female reproductive system. The ovary are small oval-shaped gland that are located on either side of the uterus. The ovaries produces the secondary oocyte or the egg and some important hormones. They travels down the fallopian tube. What happened? The ovum or the egg, secondary oocyte, will be going to travel down to the fallopian tube into the uterus, where it may become a fertilized egg or zygote by fusing with the sperm, which going to be entered during the time of sexual intercourse. Ovary found on each side of the body, and the ovaries also secretes an hormone that plays a vital role in the menstrual cycle, as well as in the process of fertility or in the process of fertilization. During puberty, the ovary begins to secrete the increased level of hormone, and the secondary sex characteristics begins to develop in response to the hormone. So during the time of puberty in sense, during the time of age, the girl which is going to attain the age, that means it's going to start producing the hormone with the help of the gonad regulating hormone, gonadotropin hormone, regulating hormone, which is secreted by your hypothalamus, and the follicle stimulating hormone, as well as the luteinizing hormone, which is going to stimulate your pituitary gland to secrete all these hormone, and this hormone helps in the process of ovulation. And this, due to this ovulation, the ovary going to secrete and two important hormone, that too, and the main thing is going to be estrogen hormone, the female sex hormone, which going to be give the feminine character of the female, and the progesterone hormone during the time of fertilization it's needed. So what happened, as soon as the estrogen hormone has been secreted, the secondary sexual characteristics, appearance of breast, then some of the female characteristics, removing of the hairs, falling of the hairs, body hairs, and some female characteristics, the walking style, the changing in the voice, everything, the secondary sexual characteristics is going to be developed. The ovary changes the structure and functioning at the beginning of the puberty. After the girl going to get puberty, the entire structure of the ovary is going to change, and the functioning behavior of the ovary is also going to change. Okay, right. The next important internal male reproductive organ is the fallopian tube. So this is called as the fallopian tube. It's just like a cone-shaped tube which is present very close to the ovary, and it's going to have a finger-like projections. As soon as the ovum going to release the ovary, we call that process, we call it as a ovulation. Immediately these finger-like projections which is present on the fallopian tube is going to catch that ovary, and it will just push that ovary into the fallopian tube, and the ovary will be rolling down the slope day by day through the fallopian tube, and it will reaching the uterus. So while it going to travel from the fallopian to the uterus, it might be get fertilized by the sperm in case if the female is get married, okay, or the female is going to get intercourse with the male. The sperm which has been injected into the uterus will reaches the ovum, which is going to rolling. The most of the fertilization will be taking place in the fallopian tube. Okay, so fallopian tube, the narrow tube that are attached to the upper part of the uterus and serves as the pathway for the ova to travel from the ovaries to the uterus. The fertilization of an egg by the sperm normally occur in the fallopian tube. That's what I said. Then fertilized egg then moves to the uterus, where it implants to the implant to the uterine lining. Okay, you can see that, we see that uterine lining, everything deeply. Then the fallopian tube is simply columnar epithelial with a hair-like projection called as cilia, which carries the fertilized egg. That's very important. Right. Next, we're going to see about the ovary. Okay, so ovary is the gonad or primary sex organ of a female. It's a primary sex organ. A woman has two ovaries on either side of your uterus. The ovaries has two function. One is going to be gametogenic function, and other one is going to be endocrine function. The gametogenic function is nothing but the production and releasing of ovum or the egg or the secondary oocyte, which is the female gamete, and the endocrine function of the ovary is to be secretion of the female sex hormone, which is very important. The ovaries are flattened ovoid body with a dimension of 4 centimeters in length and 2 centimeters in width and 1 centimeters in thickness. Each ovary is attached at hyme to the broad ligament by means of mesovarium and ovarian ligaments. So this ovary is going to be hold safely and tightly with the help of these mesovarian and ovarian ligaments, which going to hang your ovary, where we can able to see here. So this is going to be your that ligaments which going to hold the ovary tightly on either side of your uterus. Right. Each ovary has two portions. One is going to be a medulla and other one is going to be a cortex. Just like your kidney, we have seen the two layers of kidney, just like that. Your ovum is going to have two portions or two layers. One is going to, center one is going to be a medulla, and the outer one, the yellow color, is going to be your cortex. The medulla, which is also called a zona vasculosa, is the central deeper portion of the ovary. Stroma of loose connective tissues containing blood vessels, lymphatics, nerve fibers, and bundle of smooth muscle fiber near the ileum. Okay. So next is going to be a cortex, is the outer border, outermost layer portion of your ovary, and as the compact cellular layer interrupt at the hyme, and where the medulla is continuous with the mesovarian ligaments, and the cortex is lined by a germinal epithelial underneath a fibrous layer known as tunica albuginea. The cortex consists of the following structures. Okay, the cortex is going to have some important structures. Going to be a granular structure, connective tissue cells, then interstitial cells. The granular structures, which is going to represent the ovarian follicle. So this is going to be an ovarian follicle at different stages. This ovarian follicle is going to undergoes different stages, and based upon the stages, ovulation is also going to occur. We will see this process later. Then the connective tissue cells, this is going to have some lot of connective tissue cells. Then the interstitial cells, which are a cluster of epithelial cells. This is going to be a interstitial cells with your cuboid epithelial cells, cluster of cuboid epithelial cells with fine lipid granular formed mainly from theca interna. So it's going to have two layers. The follicle is going to have two layers, which is going to be theca interna and theca externa and theca interna, and these cells going to be formed at the time of ovulation process. Right. Next is going to be a ovarian follicle. Right, now we're going to see about the ovarian follicle. The ovarian follicle are the basic unit of the female reproductive system, or a female reproductive physiology or the biology. Okay, and ovarian follicle is roughly spiroid cellular aggregation set found in the ovary. It secretes the hormone that influence the stages of the menstrual cycle. This is very important. Menstrual cycle, in sense, the follicle which is going to be produced, and that follicle is going to undergoes different stages, and the ovulation process will take place, and this follicles plays a major role if the egg is going to get fertilized, or else if it is not get fertilized or it not get fused with the sperm, it will ends in a process called as a menstrual cycle. Then the woman begins the puberty with about 4 lakhs follicles, okay, each with the potential to release an egg cell at the ovulation for the fertilization. These eggs are developed once every in the menstrual cycle. Each of them contains a single oocyte. These structures are periodically initiated to the growth and develop, then culminating into in ovulation process. They also consist of two important cells. We call it as granulosa cells and the theca of follicular cells. Then the granulosa cells in sense, the follicular cells are cell that surrounds the oocyte within the follicles. The number of increase directly in response to the thickening level or the heightening level of the circulation gonadotropin, or decrease in the response to the testosterone hormone which is secreted in the female. Even though it's a male hormone, a little bit of testosterone is also going to be secreted in the female tract, which which we have discussed during the time of your gonadotropin hormone. Then theca follicle, the granulosa cells interns and enclosed in the thin layer of the extracellular matrix, which we call as a theca cells of the follicle. These theca cells forms a two-layer. One is going to be theca interna, and as well as the other one is going to be a theca externa. What is meant by ovulation? Next, we're going to see about the ovulation process. So ovulation is the release of secondary cell from the ovary. So we can see in the diagram animated video, these are the follicles which we call as the graphene follicle. This graphene follicle we're going to have the egg inside the graphene follicle. What happened, undergoes many stages, and finally what about at the time of puberty, what happened is going to be what happened is the layer of your graphene follicle is going to be peeled off, and the egg or the secondary oocyte or the secondary cell which comes out from the outer layer of the ovary, and it get entered into the fallopian tube. In women, this event occur when the ovarian follicle rupture and releases of the secondary oocyte ovarian cell. The estrogen level peaks towards the end of the follicular phase. So what about at the, I tell you about the follicular phase, we will see in the menstrual cycle. So during the time of follicular phase, what happened, the secretion of your estrogen will be in the high peak. So to involve in the process of ovulation. By the positive feedback mechanism that causes the surge in the level of luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. What happened, as soon as this graphene follicle has been released, this egg into the secondary oocyte cell into the fallopian tube, what happened again, these follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone start secreted by your pituitary gland, which is going to be a positive feedback mechanism, and it started developing another follicle for the next period of ovulation process. It lasts from 24 to 36 hours and results in the rupture of the ovarian follicle, causing the oocyte to be released from the ovary. After ovulation, during the luteal phase, the egg will be available to the fertilization by the sperm. And in addition to that, the uterine lining is also thickened it's also get thickened and receives the fertilized zygote if the egg is get fused with the sperm. So these two processes will be taking place simultaneously. The thickening of your uterus, as well as your formation of the follicle in the ovary. If no conception occurs, that means no fusion of the ovum with the sperm occurs, the uterine lining as well as the blood will be shed during the menstrual cycle. This is going to be your menstrual cycle. The uterine lining in the uterus is going to be peeled off, and a lot of blood circulation is going to be turned, and the uterine lining, which we called as an endometrium, these endometrium tissues will be broken into small pieces and mixed with the blood, which is going to be shed out by the walls of your uterine, and this blood along with the endometrium tissue will be sent through the vagina, through the cervix as well as vagina, as a menstrual cycle, and we call it as a menstrual phase or the bleeding phase in the menstrual cycle. Right. The function of ovaries. The ovaries are the primary sex organ in the female. It going to function, three important function is going to be takes place. Main thing, secretion of female sex hormone, then in the process of oogenesis, and in the process of menstrual cycle. So till now we have seen the secretion of female sex hormone, what are things are happening, and how it's going to what are the parts of your female reproductive system, and what are these parts going to have. Now we're going to see another important process, we call it as oogenesis, and other one is going to be a menstrual cycle, which is very important in the female reproductive system. So oogenesis is nothing but the formation of your egg or the ovum. So similarly, we have seen the spermatogenesis in male. So in spermatogenesis in male, we have first division is going to be a mitotic division, and other two we're going to have meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, and we got a haploid. First is going to be a diploid cell. Then finally we're going to have the haploid sperms, the 4 sperms. So in the process of spermatogenesis, from a single germ cell from the seminiferous tubule, finally we're going to get 4 active sperm, 4 inactive or sterile sperm cell, which is going to be get activated as soon as it travels through your epidermis of the epidermis of, and then into the vas differentia, it will get activated and it will get its motility. Okay, likewise in oogenesis also going to takes place the mitotic division as well as the meiosis division, but it is quite different and it's quite interesting when we compare to a male spermatogenesis. Okay, we will see the oogenesis process. Actually, in the oogenesis, the same germanium epithelial cells inside the ovary of the female going to have a cell. This is going to be your germanium epithelial cells. This cell going to undergo mitosis process, and here is going to be a diploid cell. In sense, is going to have 46 chromosome or 23 pairs of chromosome. This is going to be undergo mitosis condition, and it going to have a oogonium with same diploid cell. That means you're going to have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Then what happens, this is going to be get divided. The after mitosis process, what happens is going to be divided into 2 daughter nuclei, which is also going to be a diploid nuclei. Because the mitosis process, we're going to have the diploid nuclei. The main thing is going to be the crossing over of the chromosomes will be takes place. The information of the each and every chromosomes will be crossed over in the different chromosomes. And what happened is going to be have 2 diploid cells, which we called as a oogonia. Okay, this is called as a oogonia. The same phases will be taking place in the what are the stages we are seeing in the spermatogenesis. First is going to be a multiplication phase, next one is going to be a growth phase, and next one is going to be a maturation phase. In spermatogenesis, we had another phase called as transformation phase, which here we can't able to see the transformation phase. In the spermatogenesis, the transformation phase, the sperms which has been produced in the produced inside the testes in the seminiferous tubules will get moved into the lumen of the seminiferous tubules and goes and stores in the epiphysis of your testes. Whereas here there is no transformation is going to be takes place, because your ovum is going to be sticking, or it's going to move from the fallopian tube and it's going to be stick to the walls of your uterus and wait till the sperm reaches the ovum. So there is no need for the transformation of the ovum. So it's going to have 3 phases, just like your spermatogenesis. It's going to have multiplication phase, growth phase, and the maturation phase. And in the multiplication phase, we have seen the multiplication phase, and here the same thing what happens in the spermatogenesis, the oogonia, this we call it as the oogonia, it's going to grow till the maximum, it reaches the maximum growth of the cell, which we call as a primary oocyte. Okay, so this primary oocyte is also going to be diploid in nature. That means it's going to have 23 pairs of chromosomes, and this as soon as it reaches the maximum growth, it's going to undergo a process called as meiosis 1. Just like your spermatogenesis is going to undergo meiosis 1. Okay, so what happened in this meiosis 1, it's going to produce a haploid ovum with a with the polar bodies. Okay, it's going to produce a second polar body. Here only one egg, one fertile egg ovum will be produced from a single graphene, a single germanium cell. Whereas in the spermatocyte we are going to produce 4 sperms, where here we are going to produce only one fertile ovum cell. Okay. Then it undergoes meiosis 1, and we're going to have a haploid secondary oocyte cell with a secondary polar body. Even the first primary oocyte also we're going to have a first polar body is going to release at the time of meiosis 1. And next, this same haploid cell, again it's undergo another process called as haploid undergoes another process called meiosis 2, where we're going to have the same haploid ovum, and at that time that ovum will be we call it as a egg or zygote, okay, or the or the fertile ovum, and then it going to convert into a zygote. Okay, right. So this is the oogenesis process. But actually this primary till this primary oocyte, okay, or till this oogonia, this process will be taking place in the female reproductive system, in the female fetus. Okay, this has been taking place in the fetus itself. Okay, not just like male, it's quite different from the male. Till the formation of this oogonia, what happened, this is going to be developed in the fetus itself. As soon as the fetus, so this will be remaining for a year, for many years. That means the after birth of the fetus, which is going to be a girl fetus, then this will wait till the age of 12 to 15, that baby, that infant grows and become a baby and then a girl. And when you're going to attain the puberty, okay, when you're going to attain the puberty at the age of 12 or 15, this oogonia will be grow, and it will undergo the meiosis 1. Okay, will go the meiosis 1, and it produces a secondary oocyte. So this secondary oocyte will be produced inside the ovary, and it comes out from the ovary through the graphene follicle by the process of ovulation. Okay, so the ovulation is nothing but producing of fertile egg. It's not a fertile egg, it's a secondary oocyte egg. When this secondary oocyte or this secondary oocyte egg or the ovum, which when get contact with the sperm, okay, when we get contact with the sperm, only it undergoes another process called as meiosis 2. If it does not get contact, or it does not get fused with the sperm, this secondary oocyte will be pushed out or moved out by the process of menstrual cycle. If this secondary oocyte comes in contact with the sperm, then only it undergoes another process called meiosis 2. And what happened, at that time only your ovum is going to become fertile ovum or matured ovum. Until then your ovum is not mature. So when the sperm reaches the ovum, then only your ovum, that egg or a secondary oocyte, will be converted into a matured ovum. So what happened, the head of the sperm has been injected inside the that secondary oocyte, then it become a matured ovum. And after that, the fusion of these two nuclei, which is present inside the head of the sperm as well as in the nucleus of the ovary, now is going to be get fixed, it going to be get mixed up, and it going to put this is going to be, till here is going to be a haploid ovum, and it's going to be a haploid sperm, and when you're going to get fuses together, they're going to become a diploid zygote. This is going to be your, in future, this zygote is going to be developed into a fetus. This is going to be a zygote, which this zygote formation, most probably 99% that fertilization, this process we call as a fertilization. This will be taking place in the fallopian tube itself. After that, This zygote will be rolling down from the fallopian tube to the uterine wall with the help of the ciliated epithelial cells which is present on the surface of a fallopian tube. So as soon as it reaches the uterine wall, in the same as this process undergoes, this at the side by side, what happened, the uterine layer, the walls of the uterine is get embedded with an endometrium layer, which going to give the cushioning effect for the zygote, and it holds tightly the zygote, and it helps in the growth and nourishes the zygote for the development of the fetus. Okay, so this is the very important process which is quite different from your spermatogenesis. Why? Because the first stage, the formation of the oogonia process, will be taking place in the fetus itself. If it is a female fetus, this process will be done in the female fetus itself, and then this will be waiting for many years, about 12 to 15 years, till that fetus attains puberty. And after the puberty also, it going to produce a primary oocyte. The growth will be taking place with the help of the hormone secreted, and the primary oocyte is developed, and it undergoes meiosis division, and it will be produce a secondary oocyte. So till the secondary oocyte will be taking place as soon as the girl baby attains its puberty. Then the secondary oocyte will be waiting for the fertilization process. As soon as it get fertilized with the sperm, it will be converted into a matured ovum, and finally into zygote. This is a very important process which takes place in the oocyte. Just we have the jogged on the points. Oogenesis starts with the germ cells called as the oogonium, but this cell undergoes a mitosis to increase in number. The cell starting meiosis is called as the primary oocyte. The cell will begin the first mitotic division, but being arrested in its process in the first prophase stage. That stage we call it as a first prophase. That stage is called as a prophase stage, and next till the fertilization process we call it as a metastage. At the time of birth, all future eggs are in the prophase stage. At adolescence, that means the girl is going to attain puberty, the anterior pituitary hormone causes the development of number of follicles in an ovary, which hormone is nothing but the follicle stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormone, which is secreted by the anterior pituitary. This results in the primary oocyte finishing the first mitotic division, and the cell divides unequally. This is the very important. Whereas in the male, the cells will be divided equally, where here it is going to be divided unequally, and the maximum cytoplasm will be carried by a full oocyte, and the residue of that cytoplasm forms a small cell-like structure we call as a polar bodies, primary polar bodies and secondary polar bodies. This secondary polar bodies finally will get disintegrated in the ovary itself. The cell divides unequally with the most of the cellular material, and the organ is going to be one cell called as a secondary oocyte, and a small amount of cytoplasm going to be other cell which we call as a polar body. And the second cell is called as a polar body, right? Right. The secondary mitotic arrest occurs this time at the metaphase stage. This is called as the metaphase stage. At the ovulation, this secondary oocyte will release and travels towards the uterus through the oviduct. That means the fallopian tube. The secondary oocyte is fertilized. The cell continues through the meiosis process too, and completing the meiosis process. Then production of a secondary polar bodies and a fertilized egg containing all 46 chromosomes. That means that again haploid to diploid of a human being. So this is a diagram we can able to clearly understand. So this process, the primary oocyte, we are going to call it as it's going to occur before birth. So in fetus, this process is going to be takes place, and at puberty, this process is going to be takes place, and after fertilization, this process is going to be takes place. Okay, this is called as the oogenesis of production of your egg or the matured ovum. Okay. Next, we're going to see the menstrual cycle, the another important cycle which takes place in the female reproductive system and female life cycle. Right. The menstrual cycle is defined as a cycle event that takes place in a rhythmic fashion during the reproductive period of a woman's life. The menstrual cycle starts at the age of 12 or to the 15 years. The girl might get attain its puberty between the 12 in between the age between the 12 to 15. In between this age, the female children might attain their puberty, which we call it as the puberty. The commencement of menstrual cycle is called as the menarche. Okay, we call it as a menarche. That means the puberty, the starting phase, the releasing of the first ovum from the ovary, we call it as the menarche, and the releasing of the last ovum, and finally it stops the menstrual cycle. Then we call it as a menopause. So these are the two technical terms which we call it. Menarche is going to be a menarche or menarche, which is called as the first releasing of the ovum, the ovulation, first process of ovulation, we call as the menarche at the puberty. The menstrual cycle ceases at the age of 45 to 50, and the permanent cessation of the menstrual cycle in the old age we call it as a menopause. So duration of this menstrual cycle is usually 28 days. Most sometimes it might extend the beginning of the time of puberty, it might extend from 28 days to 35 days also. So under physiological condition, the physiological condition, it may vary between 20 to 40 days or 35 days, the menstrual cycle. During each menstrual cycle, the series of changes occurs in the womb and the accessory sex organ. The changes are main things: the ovarian changes, uterine changes. These two changes, the ovarian changes and uterine changes, is going to be maximum, and which plays a major role in the menstrual cycle. And there will be some drastic changes in the vaginal changes, as well as the changes in the cervix. Why? Because during this cycle, the female should not have the orgasm with them, or the temptation of having sex with the male. So at that time, the entire environment of the female will be changed, and they will be get frustrated at that time. They will be having some mood swings, and this at the time of menstrual cycle, they will be having some cramps under the abdomen, or sometimes they may feel like cramp like pain or sprain like pain in the legs or in the hands. So these are the symptoms where they're going to get the menses within a day or within 2 hours, within a time period. So based upon the usual routine process, the female might understand, they will understand which state we're going to get menses. Okay. Right, now we see the menstrual cycle process. Okay, the menstrual cycle going to have two important cycles. One is going to be a ovarian cycle, other one is going to be uterine cycle. So ovarian cycle is nothing but the events or the changes which has been taking place in the ovary. Then the uterine cycle is nothing but the event which has going to be takes place, or the changes which has takes place inside the uterus. So these are the two cycles which has been going to takes place simultaneously on either side. Each cycle can be divided into 3 phases. Most probably it's going to be a follicular phase, next is going to be a luteal phase, and third one is going to be a menstrual phase. These are 3 important phases where your menstrual cycle is going to be phase. So here you can see the diagram, you can see the animation. It starts from the 15th day. What happens? First 4 days, first 5 days going to be your bleeding phase, and after that you can see now the first day is going to be 15th day, it's going to be start. What happened? Your ovulation process occur, and the ovary is moving through the fallopian tube, and it reaches your uterus by 20th day of your menstrual cycle, and it will be waiting there for the fertilization, for the process of fertilization, for the arrival of the sperm. And what happened after the 24th or 25th day? What happened after 28th? It starts its menstrual phase or bleeding phase, where it sheds out all the the blood along with the endometrial tissue, and it will be coming out through cervix, through vagina. This is going to be our endometrium, the lining of the uterus. We call this the endometrium. And what happened at the same time? What happens after the bleeding phase? Your follicular phase starts. from the bleeding phase, the 9 days, from the 6th day to 15th day is going to be a follicular phase, where your follicle going to get developed. At the same time, your uterine wall development is also going to take place. Then after the 15th day, ovulation process takes place. You can able to find out the the endometrium has been get ready, it has been formed between the 6th to 9th day of polypheric or follicular phase, and the ovary reaches your uterus and it will be waiting till 20th day, and after that bleeding phase starts. Okay, let me see the follicular phase. It is also known as pre-ovulatory phase or a pre-proliferative. This is also called as a proliferative phase, and it lasts for 9 days. This phase is controlled by the estrogen hormone. It's the hormone which going to play a major role in the follicular phase is the estrogen hormone. The follicle in the ovary mature from the primary follicle to a fully matured Graafian follicle. So primary matured, lot of follicles will be present inside the ovary, in which it will be choosing the matured follicle we will call it as a Graafian follicle, which this Graafian follicle will be ending up with the ovulation by sending the secondary oocyte cell out of your ovary into the fallopian tube. The main hormone controlling this stage are secreting the gonadotropin releasing hormone. The gonadotropin releasing hormone, which this is a hormone which is secreted in your hypothalamus. This hormone will act on the anterior lobe of your pituitary gland, which in turns and stimulate to secrete the follicle FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and the LH, luteinizing hormone from the anterior lobe of a pituitary. And this follicle stimulating hormone will be acting on the ovary and produce and helps in the production of your Graafian follicle. The same time, at the same situation. So till the formation of a Graafian follicle, and Graafian follicle we will call this is going to be act as in the ovarian cycle. This comes under the ovarian cycle, and simultaneously if you're going to see in the uterine cycle, the same time the wall of the uterus become 2 to 3 folds bigger, and the surface epithelial covers the endometrium. So in the diagram you can be able to see during the formation of the follicle process, the endometrium is also going to get developed. You can see the endometrium of the thickening of the layer is formed, and even after the ovulation it's formed and get ready for the waiting for the zygote to take over the or to hold the zygote, and it further increases the process of development of your zygote. Okay. Next is going to be next we called as the proliferative phase, or we're going to luteinizing phase. Okay, here the main process luteinizing phase, or it's also called as a secretory phase. Okay, secretory phase, it's going to last for 14 to 28 days. The later phase of prefoliative phase or the follicular phase. So after the follicular phase is going to start your luteal phase. It the beginning with the formation of the corpus luteum and ends in the either pregnancy or the luteolysis. So actually what happens, in the previous phase, the Graafian follicle has been developed with the help of the follicle stimulating hormone, the luteinizing hormone. As soon as the Graafian follicle has been created, has been formed, what happened? This Graafian follicle is going to undergo a process called as ovulation, and what happened? It sends it pushes the ovum into the fallopian tube, and this Graafian follicle, after expelling the egg or the ovum or the secondary oocyte, it becomes an empty follicle. Okay, this empty follicle we will call it as a corpus luteum. Okay, so this corpus luteum going to play a major role in the secretion of an important hormone called as progesterone. This progesterone will helps in the formation of the endometrium, and it already the endometrium has been 2 to 3 folds, around 2 millimeters to 3 millimeters of thickness of endometrium has been formed in the follicular phase, where after the secretion of this progesterone, this thickness of the endometrium is also going to be increased to 5 millimeters to 7 millimeters thickness. Why? Because this progesterone hormone which has been released from the corpus luteum will helps in the thickening of your endometrium thickness and makes a cushioning effect for the zygote if it is going to be get fertilization. That's what the formation of the corpus luteum. This phase will be lie between the starting phase, the formation of the corpus luteum, and ends in the either pregnancy. In case if that ova which is released, the secondary oocyte which get fertilization with the sperm, it ends in pregnancy and the further process will be taking place. If it is not so, the corpus luteum undergoes luteolysis. That means it's going to get disintegrated and absorbed in the ovary itself. That process we call it as a luteolysis. The main hormone associated with this stage is the progesterone. The endometrium wall, the progesterone, what main process of this progesterone? It's going to develop the endometrium wall, will increases from 5 millimeters to 7 millimeters thickness, and the estrogen, the little bit of estrogen hormone also plays a vital role in this process. Next is going to be our menstruation phase, or we will call it as a bleeding phase. What happened? The regular discharge of the blood and the mucosal tissue from the inner lining of your endometrium or the uterus will be thrown out through the vagina with a lot of blood. What happened in this phase? In case that means the secondary oocyte is not get fertilized with your sperm, what happened? Luteolysis is a process where the corpus luteum is going to be disintegrated, whereas this ovum, this secondary oocyte will be waiting and it will be reaching the uterus and it will be waiting for 2 to 3 days. And after that, what happened? After that, the life cycle of that secondary oocyte will be get over. So this secondary oocyte has to be sent out along with the endometrial wall. So what happened? This is called this phase we call it as a bleeding phase. At this phase, the endometrial thickness, endometrial wall which is present, which is lining on the uterine wall, will get peeled off. Due to that, the enormous, we can see in the diagram, you can able to see this blood vessels which has been, this is going to be uterine layer, it is going to be uterine wall, this is going to be a formation of endometrium over the uterine wall. This endometrium will get peeled off, and due to that, what happened? These blood vessels will get ruptured and the enormous amount of blood will be shedded in the uterus, and along with the blood, some of the mucosal tissue or the endometrial tissue will comes out as a bleeding or menses. Okay. The regular discharge of blood and the mucosal tissue from the inner lining of the uterus through the vagina, and it lasts for, it will be lasting from 4 to 5 days, maximum of 5 days. The bleeding, the 5th day, most probably in the 5th day, the bleeding stops, and as soon as the 5th day, from the 6th day or from the middle of the 5th day to the 9th day, again you are what, that polyphase phase will be, follicular phase will be starting for the formation of follicle. Okay, approximately around 50 to 70 ml of blood will be oozed out from the uterine layer. And this blood is going to contain a lot of thick tissue. This blood, the thickness, the viscosity of the blood is also going to be varied. Why? Because it's not a normal blood. This is the blood which is going to contain all the follicular tissues as well as the mucosal tissues in the endometrium with some thick layers. It comes out through the vagina, which should be ejected out. And it occurs under the withdrawal of the progesterone hormone. What happened at this stage? Your progesterone hormone going to be stop secreting. Why? Because until the corpus luteum is present in the ovary, the progesterone hormone will be secreted. At this stage, your luteolysis will be taking place in the corpus luteum, and the disintegration of corpus luteum will be taking place. As soon as your corpus luteum is going to be get disintegrated, the progesterone, the production of the progesterone hormone is going to be stopped. Okay, so what happened? As soon as the progesterone hormone stops, there won't be any development of the endometrial thickness. immediately the wall of the endometrium also it decreases in size, and it comes to its original normal thickness of the uterine wall. The period also stops during the pregnancy and typically and does not resume during the initial month of breastfeeding. This progesterone also hormone also plays a major role in the mammary gland for the secretion of milk, which we have discussed in the endocrine exocrine glands. Okay, so till the first initial month, the first month of the till pregnancy, there won't be any bleeding phase or the menstrual phase will be taking place. And after the birth, during the time of birth, all the membranes will be peeled off and come along with your placenta. Everything will be coming out through your vagina, and this might be a delay. This bleeding phase will be stopped till the initial month, the first month when mother's feeding to the infant. Okay, so these are the cycle which we were able to see them in the menstrual cycle. So now we're going to look up on the diagram. So these are the two important cycles which we called as the ovarian cycle and the uterine cycle. So the first 5 days, this is going to be the first 5 days is going to be a menses, that is a bleeding phase. The first 5 days is going to be from 0 to 5 day is going to be a bleeding phase, where all your endometrium will be shed off and it will pushed out along with the blood, and it will be ooze out from your vagina. So you can able to see the thickness of the endometrium after the bleeding phase or after the menses. The thickness comes to its original position, and from this to here we will call it as a follicular phase. Here what happened, the follicle stimulating hormone, the luteinizing hormone will be secreted, and the graphene follicles start developing in the ovary, as well as the endometrium thickness also going to increase in the walls of the uterine. You can able to see that. Okay, so when you're going to compare, so at the time the hormone, the ovarian hormones, the estrogen will plays a major role in the follicular phase. The secretion of the estrogen hormone will be more in the follicular phase, which helps in the luteinizing hormone, the follicle stimulating hormone will also be more in the time of follicular phase. It will be increasing and reaches the maximum both the LH and FSH. And from the 14th day to 28th day, that means other 14 days is going to be a luteal phase. This is going to be a luteal phase or secretory phase. What happened? The ovulation process develops, the development of a corpus luteum. Then what happened? Disintegration. This corpus luteum will be disintegrated into corpus albicana. Okay, this is going to be disintegrated into corpus albicana. At that time, your progesterone, the corpus luteum will be helpful in the secretion of progesterone. You can able to see the progesterone curve is more in this phase. Okay, progesterone curve is more, and what happened to the LH and FSH start decreasing. This hormone going to start decreasing, and the endometrium thickness of your endometrium is going to be somewhat increased, the double times the what we seen in the follicle phase. You see maximum of the endometrium has been reached, and it will supplied with some glands as well as the blood vessels. Then after corpus albicana, the formation of albicana, the luteolysis will be takes place, and this is going to be disintegrated inside the ovary, and again the bleeding phase, the menses is going to be start. So what happened? So your thickness of endometrium will get peeled off from your uterine layer, and it's going to be shedded out through your vagina. So this is the entire cycle of your menstrual cycle, where your female, which takes place in the female reproductive system. Okay. So next we're going to see about what happened. Right. Next we're going to see about the structure of ovum and the ovary. Okay. So this is going to be your ovary, and this is going to be your ovum. So ovum in sense, see this one, the secondary oocyte. This is going to, I enlarge this one into this. Okay, so this one is going to be seen this right here. This is the ovary. where the lot of follicles, you can see some primary ovum, primary follicles, you can able to find it out here, some globules which is present, is called as a premoderate follicle. So this follicle is going to be developed into a graphene follicle. How? See, the first stage is going to be a primary ovum, second is going to be a primary follicle, and then it's going to developing into a developing follicle, and it's going to become a graphene follicle. This is going to be a graphene follicle with a lot of vacuum or air space filled with fluid, we call as the antrum. Okay, so this space which is filled with the fluid, and the space is called as a antrum, and this is going to be a graphene follicle with a secondary ovum which is present. The rupture of the graphene follicle will be taking place, and the secondary ovum, secondary oocyte will be oozing out, and this process is called as the ovulation. That's what we call as a liberated ovum. The matured graphene follicle will undergoes a process of ovulation, and is going to liberate the ovum. This ovum, this structure is going to be this one, and after that this graphene follicle forms into a corpus, earlier corpus luteum, and finally into a corpus luteum, and then into a corpus albicana, and then finally it get disintegrate inside the ovum. So this process will be taking place simultaneously on either one of the ovary. Another important thing, in case the female reproductive system has two ovaries, a pair of ovaries on either side of the uterus wall. So in case the left ovary has ovulated this month, and the right ovary will be get ovulation, do the ovulation process the next month. Not the same ovary will be doing the ovulation throughout the period, or both the ovaries, there won't be cases of ovulation can occur. In some cases it might, in rare cases, the ovulation of the two ovaries, the pair of ovaries might be occur in some cases that I tell you at the end of the session. And this is going to be a structure of your ovum. So ovum, as this is going to be a two important layer, we call it as a corona radiata, the outer layer with your germanium follicles, germanium cells, we call it as a corona radiata, and we're going to have the follicle cells which is present, and this is going to be a cytoplasm with a nucleus, and inside the nucleus is going to have nucleolus with all the haploid genetic material. We're going to have a haploid genetic material, and inside the corona radiata we're going to have an yellow color layer. We are seeing the yellow color layer, which is called the zona pellucida. This layer is called as the zona pellucida, and in between the zona pellucida and the cytoplasm we're going to have a plasma membrane. Just like a cell, we're going to have a plasma membrane, and this plasma membrane is covered by two different layers in the ovum, which is called the zona pellucida and the corona radiata. Okay. Why? Because these two layers plays a major role in time of fertilization. Right. Fertilization. What is fertilization? The process of fertilization involves in the fusing of the sperm with the ova. The most common sequence. Actually, what happens? The process after the male and female get married, they will be undergoing sexual intercourse. This sexual intercourse in sense, the male is going to be eject or insert his penis inside the female genital tract through vagina, and it opens into the cervix, and the male going to be eject the semen along with millions of sperm. So as soon as the sperm ejected into the uterus, it starts moving. Okay, that means the great race is going to be happen. So what happened? There will be a race between one and the other sperm, who going to reach the ovum first. So you can see in the diagram. So lot of many sperms will be coming like your ant. When you're going to drop some sweets, you can find of a cluster of ant will be eating the sweet. Same case, the ovum is surrounded by a lot of millions of sperms which come and join. Okay. What happens, as soon as the sperm will be moving fast and reaches the ovum, it will be disintegrate the outer layer called as corona radiata, and also the zona pellucida region. How? With the help of the chemical substance, the acid chemical substance which is present in the head, which we call as the acrosome. The acrosome, which is mainly present on the head of the sperm, it's used to disintegrate this layer, zona pellucida and corona corona radiata. And what happens as soon as it will be penetrating into, you can able to see this image. What happens? See, listen here. You can watch this area. Okay, so what happened? The sperm enters and the tail and everything is going to get disintegrated. Again, it's going to disintegrate into the nucleus and shed all its haploid content into the nucleus of the female ovum nuclei, where it's going to become a zygote of diploid condition. Okay, so what happened? You can ask the question that, sir, one sperm has been penetrating, another sperm was also penetrating. Why that genetical content is not entering into the sperm, or the sperm is not entering into that ovum? Why? Because once the any one sperm penetrates the or the disintegrates the corona radiata and zola pellucida, immediately it forms a great wall of China. Just like a great wall of China, it's going to build a tight wall, just like a concrete wall, which doesn't allow another sperm to enter. That's a very important thing. So in one ova at a time, only one sperm can fertilize, even though the ovum is going to be surrounded with an enormous amount of sperms. Only one sperm can fertilize with your ovum, not the other. That's a very important thing, very important process undergoes in the fertilization. The most common sequence begin with the ejaculation during the copulation, that means the sexual intercourse, follows with the ovulation and finishes with the fertilization. Upon the encountering the secondary oocyte, the acrosome of the sperm produces an enzyme which allows it to burrow through the outer jelly coat of the egg. That's the ovum. The sperm plasma then fuses with the egg plasma membrane, triggering the sperm head to disconnect through the flagella as the egg travels down to the fallopian tube and reaches the uterus. Most probably this process will be taking place in the fallopian tube itself. The fertilization occurs in the ampulla, the section of your oviduct, that means the fallopian tube that curves around the ovary. That's called as the ampulla, where from the graphene from the ovary we're going to have a fallopian tube. There will be like some curve like structure in the fallopian tube called as the ampulla, where the most of the fertilization of the egg will be taking place. Right. Once the sperm cell find their way past through the zona pellucida, and the cortical reaction is going to occur. You can see the diagram. So this is a normal ovum. The orange color, the yellow color is going normal ovum. Once the sperm disintegrates, this is a winner of this race. When we entering into the ovum and disintegrate into it, immediately it create a concrete wall like reaction. We called it as a cortical reaction, which is going to takes place, and it doesn't allow other sperm to penetrate inside the sperm. You can find none of the sperm is going to get penetrated during this time. Okay, it just fighting himself. It tries to enter into the womb, and finally these sperm cells will be absorbed in the uterine layer itself. Okay. That reaction, as soon as the sperm enters into the ovum, the first sperm enters the ovum, that reaction is going to called as a cortical reaction. This cortical granulus inside the secondary oocyte fuses with the plasma membrane of the cell, causing an enzyme inside these granulae to be expelled by the exocytosis of the zona pellucida, which prevents the fertilization of the egg by more than one sperm. That's very important. The cortical reaction and the acrosome reaction are both essential to ensure that only one sperm will get fertilized with the egg. In sometimes you might ask a question, sir, in case if two sperms disintegrates into the ovum at the same time, what will happen? So this cortical reaction as well as the acrosome reaction will take care of that. Only one haploid nucleus will be get fused or mixed with your haploid nuclei of your ovum. That's very important. Even though there's chances, of course, there is a probability of getting that two sperms will disintegrate at the same time and entering into the ovum. It might happen at that time. This cortical reaction and acrosome reaction will be take care and see to that only one haploid cell from the sperm will get fertilized with the haploid of the cell of the ovum. Right. So this is what about your female reproductive system. And apart from this, I would like to say one important thing. During this fertilization, in the fertilization, you might have a question in your mind: how twins? So you are telling that at that time only one ovum is going to be only one produced by the ovary during the time of ovulation. Other ovary is going to be stay as it is. The next month, the other ovary is going to be ovulate. Simultaneously, each and every ovary going to ovulate differently. Then how twins is going to happen? And don't think that if two or more sperms enter into the ovum, it can produce twins. No, because due to this cortical reaction, there is no possibility of fusing two sperm nuclei into a single ovum nuclei. There is no chance at all. Okay, so how the twins is happening, how these twins are developed? There are two types of twins. One is going to be identical twins and non-identical twins. So what happened during the time of zygote formation? Immediately what happened, as soon as the genetic content, the nucleus of your sperm and the genetic content of your ovumes get fused, and immediately it starts multiplying the cells. Okay, the haploid cell of your sperm as well as ovum going to fuse to form diploid, and this diploid is going to be 2 into n. Okay, two cells going to be converted into separate into 2, and then 2 is going to be with same number of diploid content. 2 is going to become 4, 4 is going to be 8, 8 is going to be 16, 16 to 32. So it is a lot of multiplication stage is going to be occur in the development of the zygote. During that time, sometimes there might be detach of these two cells and forming into two different zygotes. So this is going to be identical twins. In some cases, the same sex also will be same sex will be produced. In the identical twins, only same sex will be produced. Why? Because only one sperm, it might have either X chromosome or Y chromosome in the genetic content, and this same zygote is going to be get detached into two zygote during the time of this meiosis process. Okay. Then non-identical twins, that's what I said. There is some chances due to some physiological condition, physiological environment. Due to this condition, what happens, the ovulation process can takes place in two ovaries at a time. So this is a very rare situation where the ovulation can occur at two ovaries at the same time. So what happened? We have a lot of enormous amount of sperms in the uterus and the ovary. All the sperms will be moving towards the exactly most of the sperms will be moving towards the ovum, which is present in either left fallopian tube or right fallopian tube, because the progesterone hormone which has been secreted in the fallopian, in that ovum, in that uterus on the fallopian tube, will attract the sperms. The sperm has more affinity towards this progesterone hormone, so most probably it will be moving towards the ovum. Many of the sperms will be moving towards the ovum. So in case if there is going to be two ovum, it's going to be secreted on either side of the on both the sides of your graphene follicle, the sperm will be get detached, and half sperm will be moving towards this ovum and half sperm will be moving to that ovum. And what happened, two ovums will get fertilized, and these two ovum will develop into a zygote, and these going to be non-identical twins. Why? Because the same, they won't be identical, and the sex also might be get varied, because each and every sperm might have in this ovum, either if you're going to take the left side of a fallopian tube, the sperm which is going to get fused with the left side of a fallopian tube, or the ovum in the left side of the fallopian tube, the sperm might have X chromosome, and right side of the fallopian tube, that ovum is going to get fertilized with the sperm which is going to have a Y type of chromosomes. So what happened, it's going to develop into a male baby, and this is going to develop into a female baby, and they are not looking alike. That's a non-identical twins. So this is the reason how these identical twins and non-identical twins, and this process also takes place in the fertilization. And within this, the human reproductive system has been completed. Athena sir, are you there, sir?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Yeah, sir. Today's session has been over.
Yes,
We
sir.
will be next week. We will be finishing off another two topics has been pending. One is going to be
Yes,
our
sir. Yes, sir.
lymphatic system, and other one is going to be immune system.
Yes,
Most
sir.
probably
Yes,
we
sir.
will be hopefully completed by next week, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir.
Take care.